Hey you, yes, you, Davide here, your impertinent collector. And look, regardless if you're gonna be dropping out in the next 30 seconds, or you carry on watching this video for its whole length, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for clicking on this video. Because in doing that, you are in effect supporting one of my creative endeavors. Yes, because you see, in my case, all the content that you see is original. I work around few ideas and then I improvise. If you see me saying a wrong word, it's because English is not my mother tongue. And when you see me hesitating, it's because I'm not reading for a teleprompter. I'm just getting my head around what I'm going to say next. So remember, when you watch or like or subscribe, in a sense, you are supporting the artist that is within me and potentially the future artist that is in you, assuming you are not an artist already. Now, this video has been inspired by my great-grandfather by the name of Tullio Silvestri, and one of his paintings is here behind me. Because last year in Italy, they did for the first time a solo exhibition of his paintings after 60 years roughly from his death. And that made me thinking. And you know what? If you like me, you might like my great-grandfather. But if you can't stand me, you might still fall in love with him. And especially, what is it like to be an artist? In his case, he was born in northern Italy in a region called Friuli, on the border within Austria and what was then, back then, like Yugoslavia, so like Slovenia, Croatia, and so on. And he lived a long and fulfilling life, died at a grand old age of 83 years old. And his life was an hectic life. He lived and worked in Trieste. He lived, worked and studied in Venice. He lived and worked and sold his art in Paris. He lived in Cairo, in Egypt. And, you know, he had to live not through one, but through two world wars. So incredibly difficult years, with World War I between 1914 and 1918, and World War II between 1939 and 1945. And see, he was able to come up unscathed. And he was very well received. He was very well recognized, and he was part of what was an intelligentsia in that period. And among his friends, he accounted for like an Italian writer by the name of Italo Svevo, that ended up winning the Nobel Prize for Literature, and another well-known writer by the name of James Joyce, with whom you had a very, very close relationship. But the most important things, apart from the topic of his paintings, that he liked to paint the poor and the real people rather than the famous one, even if he did a lot of portraits of very famous people, including Nora Joyce, James Joyce himself, and so on. He particularly liked the poor people of his region in Friuli. But in this fulfilling life, the question that is open and that he left to all of us is, what is it like to be an artist. And so, not that long ago, I came across an interview, one of the last interviews, as a matter of fact, of rock star legend David Bowie, who said that in order to be an artist, you must be socially dysfunctional. And I was totally fascinated by this line. To be an artist, you need to be socially dysfunctional. And he had a ring that it was particularly true for me, because how can you even think of writing a book knowing that all the best books have already been written? How can you think of writing new music when all the best composers in the world have already composed all the most wonderful music? And what about painting? How can you paint and become a painter and becoming successful? But probably the answer is that these people felt no other option. They were compelled to write, to compose music, to sculpture, and to paint, like in the case of my great-grandfather, Tullio Silvestri. But at the same time, I cannot discard the fact that in terms of fame and fortune, he didn't die rich, but he was certainly fortunate enough to live a very rich life, of which, of course, we only have some snapshot. So I suppose that, like for everybody else, life as an artist has been like incredibly hard. And yet he was allowed, in a sense, to flourish and to support himself being an artist. And he must have achieved some modicum of fame, even if very few people know who he is now. Because when he died in the 1960s, newspapers around the world carried few lines saying that the great Italian painter Tullio Silvestri had died at the age of 83 years old. And I think that that was his fortune and that was his fame. Because just to name few of the giants in terms of painters of history, think about Caravaggio, think about Rembrandt, think about Francisco Goya, think about Toulouse-Lautrec, think about Degas, and what about Van Gogh? They all died poor and destitute in very dire situation. And so that wasn't his case. And I like this feeling, this expression, this power that comes with painting. And I remember another great American painter, personally not my favorite, because I have a lack of understanding and possibly opposition towards contemporary art and modern art, because I like everything classical. But this very well famous painter by the name of Mike Rothko, American painter, now his paintings go for hundreds of millions of dollars, once said, "A painting is not the picture of an experience, it's the experience itself." And this suggests in a wonderful way that the experience that has been captured by the painter is completely different from the experience of the observer. And I like another famous episode where the French composer Claude Debussy, famous of course for his Clair de Lune, once attended a concert of chamber music of this group that were playing his music. And at the end of the concert, he went to congratulate to the musician, and he said to them, I had no idea that my music could be played with this interpretation. Imagine, the composer that is acknowledging that the musician are playing his music differently and still he loves it. Well, maybe if he was Beethoven, he would have been less sympathetic. But you know, he was a grumpy man even when he wasn't that old. But you know, this aspect of being compelled to be an artist is extraordinarily fascinating to me. Because partially for my personality and my family history and background, I certainly have an artistic personality that maybe comes through by these videos. But I cannot paint, I cannot draw, I cannot write, I cannot play music. And that means that every time I see somebody producing something, it might be like playing the piano, it might be drawing a sketch or writing few lines, I'm totally fascinated, because to me it's really like magic. The magic of producing art, regardless if you're gonna be recognized or not. And so in a sense, yes, I'm using Tulio Silvestri as an excuse to acknowledge and to celebrate all the unknown artists that through history felt compelled to undress and jump into the water of a river where you have to swim against the flow. A river that is often cold, muddy, full of debris. And some of those debris pierce your skin, make you bleed, and give you both physical and psychological pain. But you cannot stop. You have to do it. And so yes, in his case, it was fantastic that he was able to live such a life. But how many people that are totally unknown, very much like him, were less fortunate? And I remember once the unfortunate and extraordinary great Vincent van Gogh once said, I dream my painting and I paint my dream. How deep is this vision? And yet, as I leave you with another giant who died way too young in very unfortunate circumstances by the name of Amedeo Modigliani, your sole duty in life is to save your dream. And this is me, Davide, the Impertinent Collector, today in the company of my great-grandfather, Tullio Silvestri.